Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. Dereliction of duty. That is the subject of tonight's Waters Words. A 5-time deported criminal illegal alien shot an American citizen with a stolen gun in the sanctuary city of San Francisco. Confessed, and a San Francisco jury found him not guilty of murder. How could this happen in America? Here are the facts. Jose Inez Garcia Zarate is a Mexican national who had been convicted of 7 felonies in the United States. Some of them were aggravated felonies and others heroin manufacturing and other crimes involving narcotics. Zarate had been deported 5 times and kept sneaking back through the unsealed southern border. Zarate admitted on camera that he kept coming back to San Francisco because it was a sanctuary city. It would not alert federal immigration officials when he was arrested, therefore protecting him and his criminal activity. Zarate was picked up on a marijuana charge in 2015. ICE requested that the San Francisco Sheriff's Office detain Zarate when he was arrested. But Sheriff Ross Mirakimi ignored this request because he chose not to cooperate with the federal immigration officials and released this criminal alien back onto their streets. A little while later, a handgun was stolen from the car of a federal agent. And days later, Zarate used this handgun and shot 31-year-old Kate Steinle, a San Francisco native. Now, after the shooting, Zarate threw the gun in the water and ran away. He was picked up by police and confessed to the killing. First, he gave police a bunch of aliases. Then he said he stepped on the gun and it accidentally went off. Then he said he found the gun and it accidentally fired 3 shots. Not sure how that's even possible. Then he claimed he was shooting at a sea lion in the San Francisco Bay. He also told police he took sleeping pills before the shooting. It was clear the man was a reckless junkie who didn't belong on the streets of San Francisco. But the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco refused to take responsibility and would not admit that their sanctuary city policies led to the death of one of their own residents. I visited San Francisco City Hall to confront the politicians. I'd like to address your dangerous sanctuary city policies. I'd like to show you a picture here. It's Kate Steinle. She was murdered by an illegal alien who had been deported 5 times and over 6 felony convictions. But for some reason, the city of San Francisco let this guy out. You guys aren't even looking. Look at the picture. You afraid? You guys don't have anything to say?
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Zarate was put on trial for murder, involuntary manslaughter, assault with a deadly weapon, and it was a pretty clear-cut case. In fact, Zarate told reporters that the courts should give him the highest punishment so that he could tell Kate Steinle's parents in court that he no longer wanted to live. But his defense attorneys did a number on the jury. His team claimed that he found the gun. His team claimed that the gun had a history of misfiring and painted Zarate as a sympathetic character. Meanwhile, the prosecution downplayed the involuntary manslaughter and assault with a deadly weapon charge and laid their entire case on the murder 1 charge, arguing that Zarate deliberately shot Kate Steinle. Either way, it didn't matter. He still did it and deserved to be punished for it. But the jury didn't think so and acquitted him on all charges except illegally possessing a gun. So including the time already served, he's not looking at too much prison time. Zarate's defense attorney decided to attack Donald Trump after the verdict.
There are a number of people that have commented on this case in the last couple of years. The Attorney General of the United States, the President and Vice President of the United States. Let me just remind them that they are themselves under investigation by a special prosecutor in Washington, D.C., and they may themselves soon avail themselves of the presumption of innocence and the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. And so I would ask them to reflect on that before they comment or disparage the result in this case.
Now, with all due respect, the attorney is a self-righteous hack politicizing a tragic death. Also, we haven't seen one tweet from Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, or any other Democratic leaders about this. A beautiful woman is gunned down on the streets of San Francisco, the shooter escapes justice, and the party of women is silent? I wonder why. Well, obviously the president wasn't going to remain silent. firing off a series of tweets. A disgraceful verdict in the Kate Steinle case. No wonder the people of our country are so angry with illegal immigration. The Kate Steinle killer came back and back over the weakly protected Obama border, always committing crimes and being violent. And yet this info is not used in court. His exoneration is a complete travesty of justice. Build the wall. The jury was not told the killer of Kate was a 7-time felon. The Schumer-Pelosi Democrats are so weak on crime that they will pay a big price in the 2018 and 2020 elections. So the federal government needs to step up to the plate and deliver the justice that local officials failed to deliver. Jeff Sessions can hit Zarate with a federal felony, 10 years imprisonment for an illegal alien in possession of a firearm. Now, if he's sentenced consecutively with the state gun conviction, that would keep him locked up for 13 years, at which point then he'd be immediately deported back to Mexico. But if we don't have the wall, he's probably just going to sneak back in. Now, building a wall and eliminating sanctuary cities would probably have saved Kate's life, and she would be alive today, enjoying the holidays with her family. But sadly, she's not. Bill O'Reilly has been crusading for Kate's Law, named after Ms. Steinle. Kate's Law would impose a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence for an illegal alien caught crossing the southern border. Kate's Law already passed the House, but is stalled in the Senate. And I confronted Illinois Democratic Senator Dick Durbin back in 2015.
Just a quick question for you. Why don't you support Kate's Law?
Tell me what that's all about.
You forgot already. It was the hearing last week.
No, I was at the hearing, but tell me what aspects of it you're
protecting Americans from criminal illegal alien killers.
I think we should work to make sure that Americans are protected from those who are criminal and threaten our communities.
It's a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence for deported illegal aliens convicted of aggravated felonies.
Convicted of aggravated felonies?
And they get deported, and we catch them when they come back. Do you support that 5-year mandatory minimum?
I'll look at it carefully because I want to protect everyone. But I also don't want to discriminate against people who come to the United States and are asking for an opportunity to become legal in the U.S. You know, the president now has insisted if that's going to be the case, they have to go through criminal background checks. I think that's a thing.
We're not talking about innocent illegal aliens. We're talking about criminals who traffic in narcotics.
I answered your question.
Well, I hope you support it because I expect that you want to protect people like Kate. You do want to protect people like Kate, right?
I want to protect all Americans.
No, you don't, Senator. There's a reason that there's no reason the Senate shouldn't take up Kate's Law immediately and get it on the president's desk. San Francisco and its corrupt politicians have blood on their hands. Furthermore, the federal government's inability to secure the border also contributed to this tragedy. A country without laws and borders is not a country, but the left is okay with that because open borders gives them political power. And I'll leave you with this. Kate Steinle's father testifying in front of the Senate back in 2015.
Kate was beautiful, kind, happy, caring, loving, and deep in faith. Kate had a special soul, a kind and giving heart, the most contagious laugh, and a smile that would light up a room. Kate loved to travel, spend time with her friends, and most of all, spend time with her family. In fact, the day she was killed, we were walking arm in arm on Pier 14 in San Francisco, enjoying a wonderful day together. Suddenly, a shot rang out. Kate fell and looked at me and said, "Help me, Dad." Those are the last words I will ever hear from my daughter.
Now, a father should never have to hear those words. It is our local, state, and federal government's duty to help and protect American citizens from criminals coming into this country and doing us harm. And they have failed. And now it's time, the citizens' duty, to make sure we never let our government fail us again. Joining me now with a reaction to the verdict, the host of the Ingram Angle, Laura Ingram. So why don't Democrats want a wall, and why do they want these sanctuary city policies? What is the real reason?
I think the real reason, ultimately, Jesse, is that they want to replace the current electorate in the United States, that electorate that in Ohio and Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Florida voted for Donald Trump, with a new electorate. And that new electorate, if the demographic changes bear out that we've seen develop in Virginia, that will create a California, a Florida, a Texas that looks like New York and Connecticut and Massachusetts. So I think the Democrats mostly want to replace those, old white yahoo conservatives with a new group of people who might be a little bit more amenable to big government, who don't necessarily have a big affection for the Second Amendment or our Constitution. And a lot of the Republicans who don't want to secure the border haven't wanted to do so because they love the cheap labor.
Yep.
A lot of businesses love the cheap labor. And so there was an unholy alliance between both the left and the right for years until Trump came along and basically called them on their you-know-what and said, this is what the people want. They want a real border, they want a real government, and they want safety and security. He ran on protecting Americans and legal immigrants from this kind of carnage.
Yep.
The fact that this was allowed to happen in the first place, as you said, and it was a fantastic monologue, was beyond abominable, but it happens every day on different levels and different forms, and we're seeing it.
Do you think that Democrats are willing to take a loss of a Kate Steinle or someone like that, buy an illegal in a sanctuary city in order to further their political agenda?
Absolutely.
So they're okay with, people dying as long as the open borders keep happening?
It's kind of like on the sexual harassment stuff where you have women saying, well, if a few men have to be accused, and they're innocent, but they have to go through hell, it's worth it.
Wow.
They are more afraid of conservative, Christian, traditional Americans than they are ISIS, Al-Qaeda, illegal immigrants, drugs coming across the border, guns, human trafficking. They can talk a good game, how they're pro-women, and we're all about women. I can tell you who doesn't have any women's reproductive rights right now, Kate Steinle. And a lot of people like her.
That's a great point. All right, more sexual harassment accusations against Democrats this week. The fifth accuser came out against Senator Al Franken. She's an Army vet who says he groped her on a USO tour. Quote, when he put his arm around me, he groped my right breast. He kept his hand all the way over my right breast, and I remember thinking, is he going to move his hand? Was it an accident? Was he going to move his hand? Franken, now trying to rehab his image, sat down with the local Minnesota CBS affiliate, WCCO.
Have you ever placed a hand on some woman's butt?
I can't say that hasn't happened. I take thousands and thousands of pictures. Sometimes in crowded and chaotic situations. I can't say I haven't done that. And I am very sorry if these women experience that ability.
But hasn't your credibility been undermined?
I would say yes.
So Franken has no credibility there. He said it himself. And speaking of no credibility, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi now flip-flopping on whether Congressman John Conyers should resign. The Michigan Democrat dealing with 4 individual accusations. One of the accusers spoke to NBC.
He invited me into the hotel, and he has undressed, down to his underwear. And again, it was the proposition of sexually satisfying him.
Wow. So the Democrats have a real problem on their hands in the House and in the Senate, Laura.
Well, both parties have had issues here, but
to be fair.
Yeah, to be fair. But let's talk about Al Franken.
Yeah.
When he just first of all, that clip, I thought I was watching Saturday Night Live. Stuart Smalley again. But he says, well, it'd be crowded and chaotic situations. Wait a second. Your hand cups a woman's breast. That's not crowded and chaotic. That's just gross, okay? So the whole thought of that is gross. But then he's like, well, I guess that's hurt my credibility. The man has incriminated himself. Yeah. He tries to go and do this local reporting thing, and then he thinks that somehow this expiates him from any future accountability. This is what Democrats will always try to do. He's kind of beloved for a lot of reasons. Yeah. He's a celebrity. He's so liberal. He's made a lot of alliances in the Senate really smartly. And unlike Conyers, who's 88 years old.
Right. He's halfway out the door.
Yeah, well, as my friend Raymond Arroyo said, he has actually been there so long. It's not only during LBJ that he actually was elected, but Mary Poppins came out the year that he was actually elected. So
he's 78, 88, something
he's
like
88,
that.
Yes, yeah, almost a nonagenarian, Jesse.
Wow.
So it's time to step aside.
I know, and I think it's time for him to step aside as well as Al Franken. Nancy Pelosi in a little bit of trouble because she has called for Conyers to get out of there. Hasn't said really much about Al Franken. Now the Congressional Black Caucus is saying, listen, Nancy, a little bit of a racial double standard here.
So she's getting a little taste of the identity politics.
It's about
medicine.
time.
I mean, it's always whose ox is gored. Now she's feeling it. They always do that to conservatives. They've done it to Fox for years. The American people, you're anti-woman, anti-immigrant, anti-the. And now Nancy Pelosi, San Francisco values San Fran Grand Nan, as I like to call her. Now she's subjected to the same identity politics, garbage that the rest of us have been subjected to. And I'm enjoying the moment.
Yeah, you look like you're feeling very sorry for Nancy Pelosi.
Yes, I'm broken up. I can barely continue tonight.
All right, but the biggest bombshell this week, Today's show anchor Matt Lauer, the $20 million a year man, fired after accusations of sexual harassment with staff. Details include sexual intercourse in his office, causing a woman to seek medical attention, sexting with interns, and other forms of workplace harassment. Since then, people have taken a fresh look back into Matt's past on-air behavior.
Pretty sweater. Keep bending over like that. It's a nice view.
I went into your office once. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Snooping, and you had a huge bag of sex toys, and do you remember this?
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes, you did.
What is Matt's most annoying habit?
He pinches me on the ass a lot.
Okay, so, Laura, it seems like a lot of people at NBC News were a little aware about Matt Lauer. How much culpability does NBC and the staff and the talent have?
Well, did they tolerate and perpetuate a hostile work environment? A hostile work environment is one of the ways you can prove an atmosphere of sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is a very defined term in the laws. People kind of throw it around very blithely. But in this case, if it can be proven that NBC knew, not just that there was a complaint filed, but that old Jeff Zucker over at CNN who said, this isn't the Matt I know. Right. I've only been best friends with him for 25 years. I mean, I don't know how many best friends that people know that you don't know anything about their predilections, but nevertheless, if you can prove that NBC understood the hostile work environment that had been created by Lauer and maybe others who were covering up, that not only could be actionable civilly, but it could be a conspiracy against NBC, a RICO conspiracy. There are ways to pursue this that are very scary.
So you're saying it's a class action possibility?
It could be. These women get together and they say, "Look, we want the documents.
Wow.
We want depositions. We want to put you under oath." It's nice for Jeff Zucker to go to a conference, and he may actually have known nothing. But I worked at NBC during some of those years. I was at MSNBC. I knew all these guys a little bit. I knew Jeff Zucker a little bit. I knew Matt Lauer. But Lauer was perfectly nice. But they're under deposition. That's a different deal.
So the shareholders are going to take a bath now. I mean, this was a $500 million a year franchise.
They've made a lot of investments without naming the obvious names that haven't really been panning out so well lately.
No, they have not. And Megyn Kelly now, the biggest star these days. And it looks like she's jockeying for position to maybe take Matt's seat.
That's not going down so well with the staff.
And that's causing a lot of consternation over there. Yeah. NBC has not done well recently. When you put the fact that you remember back in the 90s, they spiked the Juanita Broderick rape interview expose.
Initially, then they finally let it run.
They finally let it run afterwards.
I was with them then at MSNBC. Yeah.
Okay, so and then also the whole expose over Weinstein was spiked, and he had to shop it over to the New Yorker.
Farrow.
Exactly. So it looks like a pattern of cover-up.
A pattern in practice of tolerating hostile work environments and perhaps predators in their midst. It's not pretty, and the shareholders at some point.
It happens everywhere. I mean, listen, it happens at a lot of different places.
Fox has had the questions raised about Fox News. We all know that, but in this case, with the charges that they're making one after the other, which are so gross, I don't even repeat them. I mean,
I don't even like to. I don't even like to
say them because children pass by television, but at some point, don't shareholders want more of a say? Yeah. I mean, this is a huge amount of money that they're putting out year after year after year. And what are the returns? And what is it worth? What is the money actually worth?
Well, I mean, they realized they had to cut this guy loose immediately because it wasn't worth defending him for another
no
24
severance.
hours. Yeah.
No, here's your severance.
He's looking at $30 million of severance.
Yeah. Here's your severance. Nothing.
Exactly. All right, Laura, thank you very much.
Great to see you, Jesse.
Up next, Pocahontas. Back now talking about the Democratic sex scandals rocking the mainstream media and Congress. Joining me now to discuss are Fox News contributor Tomi Lahren and contributor of The Federalist, Britt McHenry. Okay, Tommy, I want to keep this in personal terms. As a young woman coming up in the business, how do you navigate these situations where if you have an older boss who's a man and say he wants to take you into his office or on the road and, you know, things can turn like that, where do you draw the line?
Well, here's the deal, Jesse. I guess I grew up in a very different way than maybe some of these women. I've always been very outspoken. So I said in my final thoughts the other night, if you touch me and I don't want to be touched, it'll be the last time you touch me. I can promise you that one. So I think that for young women in this industry, it's just about empowering young women.
Right. No, listen, you're from down south. You're probably packing. And this stuff doesn't happen down there as much as it does in New York, I can imagine. Britt, you worked at ESPN. Mm-hmm. Were you ever reticent about either going on the road or going into the offices? And how did you deal with it?
So just to give you a breakdown of what the newsrooms are like, the Associated Press did a report in 2014 that said 90% of sports editors were male. That's just in the newsroom, right? So I was probably one of 3 females in a football locker room covering the National Football League.
That must have been tough.
You toughen up. If I was to get offended by every little joke, every little thing, I would have lost a job in 2 weeks. So I think there needs to be due process and investigation, and you just need to take things case by case, because I think there's a difference between sexual assault and sexual harassment. Neither are okay, but you need to take them by case.
So Britt brings up an interesting point, Tommy. What is due process? Because we're not talking about the law. This is all happening in corporate America or in Congress. So should there be a different platform? Because right now, accusation, allegation, goodbye. Everybody gets fired. How do you think it should go down?
It's really difficult to navigate it right now, because then you run the risk of women coming out that maybe are not telling the whole truth, or maybe they're trying to seek some kind of revenge on either a politician or someone in pop culture, entertainment, sports. And so I think that that's a sensitive area that we need to navigate right now. But I will say this, I think the best way to draw attention to it is through the First Amendment. It's being outspoken. It's drawing attention to it when it happens. That to me is what is such an issue here, is that 20, 30 years later you have women coming out, and I would hope moving forward that if something happens to you, you'd be able to say it when it happens or very close to when it happens, and then there's more of an opportunity to correct the wrong and then move forward quickly.
I completely agree with that. And I think the lesson, Britt, after all of this is if something happens, you immediately go to a supervisor or HR or someone and tell someone. Now it's all chaos, so no one knows what to do. If you now, 20, 30 years from now, looking back, how would you see this climate? Because I think right now men are scared. Yeah. And you could get to a point where women are going to be denied opportunities to advance in corporate America because men don't want to be alone with a woman, don't want to be in the same office as a woman, and that could have repercussions.
I was just having that conversation with someone. Like, I'm not a feminist, but it seems with this climate, the future is female, or may not be, as you mentioned, because of these concerns. You look at the Al Franken photo and how many years elapsed before that came to light. I think that, however, it did come to light, and in that case the reporter was sleeping, was not part of the joke. Right. So when he tried to dismiss it as part of a joke, when someone's unconscious, it's not funny, right? No. So we need to factor the entire scenario in, and I just hope that women feel their strength now, but also keep these considerations to not ruin lives or careers.
That's true. All right. Well, speaking of scandals, the media is trying to cook up a new one for President Trump, running wild with a joke he made referring to Elizabeth Warren as Pocahontas during an event at the White House this week honoring the World War II contributions of Native Americans.
You're very, very special people. You were here long before any of us were here. Although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas.
Here's how Senator Warren fired back.
It is deeply unfortunate that the President of the United States cannot even make it through a ceremony honoring these heroes without having to throw out a racial slur.
Tommy, a racial slur. Pocahontas, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
I think it's pretty rich that she would bring up someone using Native Americans to their advantage, and that's exactly what Elizabeth Warren did. So let's not forget that she got that nickname, Pocahontas, because she lied to advance herself. She exploited Native American heritage. It's all on her, and now it's poor Elizabeth Warren. No, I'm sorry, I don't think so.
All right, Britt, take it away.
Put the journalist cap on. There was a genealogist that said she had 1/32 of
That's it?
American Indian heritage. So imagine if a Republican claimed a minority ethnicity off 1/32. They would be raked over the coals by the media. So I don't just blame Elizabeth Warren. I blame the media for giving her a pass to continue to lie about her heritage.
It's true.
And the Washington Post fact check told readers to research it themselves.
Well, if there's white privilege in this country, I don't know why she's claiming Native American heritage. Tommy, Britt, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Thanks.